All right, here with Daniel for the weekend pod, talking about United 0, Spurs 3. Lads, it's United.
Oh, goodness me. It's funny, actually. Like when you just said United 0, Spurs 3, I was actually reminded of a game. I tell you when it would have been 1989, where we lose 3-0 at home to Tottenham in the League Cup. There was quite a low moment for Fergie, that, I think. But
yeah,
I mean, here's what I will say. I don't think I'm the only person that's been staring at their phone waiting for a Sky Sports news alert in hope.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think I'm the only one of these people disappointed that we've seen jack shit today. Like that was, I mean, as regular listeners will know, I would have been this guy last year. I understood why they kept him. I'd still have binned him. And even when they kept him, I think we both said, gone by November.
Yeah.
And there's not very much what we've seen. We've seen the 45 minutes against Palace, in which we didn't score. And that is basically it. I mean, we could have lost to Southampton in different circumstances if our goalkeeper that doesn't save shots hadn't suddenly decided to save a penalty. Mm-hmm. Who knows whether way that would have gone. We were lucky to get away with such narrow defeats yesterday and to Liverpool. You sit here and it can't still be the players. I mean, it can be some of the players, but it can't, because even the players that are playing are either players that he's bought or they're players that he said are fine.
Yeah. No, this is his squad. It's all on him. I mean, I think there's part of it is tactics, coaching, setup, and part of it's execution. But I think it's sort of 80-20, 90-10, that kind of way round. And if we're skewing towards poor player performances, a lot of that's because of the setup, and we're not giving anyone the chance to perform in the way they should. I mean, that was legitimately, and it's a very low bar of examples here, but legitimately one of the worst 45 minutes post Fergie.
It was up there, down there. I mean, even our old friend, the consecutive errors goal, their first one was a classic of the genre. Do you know, Edward?
Yeah.
And you might have seen this on the internet. How many times under Erik Ten Hag's management have United conceded 3 or more goals?
Actually, I don't know this. Let's say 10.
No. Go again.
15.
25.
My God.
You're like, what? And it's just this fucking mind-boggling.
That's incredible. Yeah, one of the things. Obviously, we'll go into this deeper on the tactics pod later today. But one of the things that was incredibly predictable would be that United were going to go for a vertical kind of approach to this one, and it was obvious from literally minute one, when United just banged it forward and sat back off Tottenham and then got the possession and banged it forward. And you're like, oh, okay, right, there we go. I mean, it's pretty obvious from the team lineup with Ahmad out and Garnacho in.
Which is fine. It's that not every time. Like when I was 18 or whatever, and I had an eat, and I was like, I should feel like this every moment of every day. I was 18 and I was battered. The idea that would be all it would take would be that, I'm fascinated by football tactics and by their development and by the increasing systemization of the game. But I'll always remain adamant that talent and mentality are way, way, way more important. So when I look at this team and I see those issues of talent and mentality, I don't not see them, because these are where I think ultimately, generally, football matches are won and lost. But I look at this, and as you said before, I'm blaming the manager mainly for this, because it's a mess. And if it wasn't a mess, it wouldn't look like this. And it was the same at the end with Mourinho. It was a mess. Nole came in and didn't do that much, but just it being someone else and putting the right players in the right places, and it's better. And it's not possible to get less out of this group of players. Whatever you think about this group of players, they don't have lower than where they are in them because they are too good for that. And we keep, I read someone said yesterday, and it was a journalist, so really someone who gets paid to watch football for a living, so should have known better, was saying, well, how many of these players would get in City or Arsenal's team or whatever? And that to me is not the question. The question is, what would these be doing if they were managed by Guardiola or Arteta?
Yeah. I think it's a much better way of thinking about it. And I mean, we spoke about it before. United's, if you looked at just the XG differential from last season, United should have finished 15th, finished 8th instead. So we were overperforming.
Never been said before about last season when they produced. In fact, they were playing better than you think they did.
Yeah.
They overperformed.
And of course, yesterday it was 0.75 XG to nearly 5 XG. I mean, 5 is a lot of XG to create, but for Timo Werner's like horrendous finishing, which has been a feature of his entire career except for one season, it could have been 5 or 6.
And the goalkeeper actually made some saves in fairness. So he made 7.
Yeah, he made 7 saves. So actually, his personal XG differential, Onana, is plus like 3. So he saved 3 more goals than would have been expected for the average keeper. So, no, he's doing well from a shot-saving perspective. The thing that is really jarring about Onana is he just bangs it long, and it's clearly instruction because they set up at one point like a rugby kickoff and rolled it back to Onana, and there were 4 players on the left-hand side, and he just launched it. Just like unbelievably agricultural and basic.
You see that, like under 11s, when one side had got a few lads who have hit puberty already.
Yeah.
And I mean, it reminded me a little bit when they go in at half time. I remember when Brazil played Germany in the World Cup semi that time, and I'm thinking, if I'm one of these Brazil lads, they just don't come out. Just fucking do a runner. Where are they? Don't know. You can say. And I mean, I would have fired them 10 up at half time for that because it's not even. So, number one, do you think that Ange Postecoglou, mate, doesn't know that he has a high line that other teams are going to target, such that all you need to do is that? But also, they're going to have the ball. What's your plan then? Yeah. They're going to. And sitting off that team is criminal, just the way that United sat back, because it was back to last season. You sit back, you prep, you do a little bit of pressing, and you try and get players on basically on the shoulder and then you end up with a hole in the middle of the pitch. And then, after 5 minutes, nothing. 10 minutes. Do something, because it's not fucking working, and it's just...
Yeah, well, they barely pressed at all. I mean, they just went back into a mid-block straight away, and that was clearly the idea, was that they'd sit in the mid-block and then they'd go direct to Garnacho and Rashford, who were both extremely narrow, and Xerxes and Bruno were effectively like sharing the number 10 role, and like Van der Ven and Romero just ate all of that up. It was just super easy for them in that first half, and then Spurs have these 2 really high fullbacks, and they just had effectively more men in midfield all of the time. And
however high Spurs fullbacks were, they weren't as high as Diogo Dalot must have been. Because goodness me, that was one of the worst performances I've seen in a very, very crowded. What a mare did he have? Not that he was given the tools really to help, but still, like the first goal, the running back that he isn't doing is sensational, because he could have been there to stop that cross.
It could have been. I mean, let's talk about the first goal and just like he's done a 60-yard straight run. I mean, jinxed a little bit to the left at the end, obviously. But
it's a bison. It's not a cheese. I mean, he's a fairy elephant, that Van der Ven. A jink is. I mean, it's generous, but. What was also troubling about it is we saw literally the same shit on Wednesday, just going in the opposite direction, the same part of the pitch. Yeah. Where the Twente is a fullback, zooms past 5 people. And Ugarte, I think, was involved in both of those.
Yeah. Well, against Twente, he managed to get a bit of a tackle in, didn't he?
No, it was fair enough. It was a good tackle against Twente.
He didn't manage it this time. I mean, it starts with Rashford, like, I don't know whether he like miscontrolled it or he's trying to pass it to Garnacho or he thinks he's going to have space or whatever. He loses the ball. And, it's one of those, just a quick diversion into Rashford. He's obviously being asked to play, well, for the 20 game, he was extremely wide. He was just like touching on the touchline. He's obviously being asked to play the ball into space and he's kind of creator, not goal scorer role for most of the games this season and doesn't suit him and he's deeply frustrated. And then this time round, he was much more central and I guess that's because they're just going to launch it long to him and try and find space there. And I guess my frustration is not so much with is Rashford playing badly because yes, right. It's something about the Old Trafford crowd and it's been so infrequent over the years that the crowd like very clearly get on someone's back. And here they were kind of groaning when he ran with the ball and got tackled and groaning when he kept possession. And I'm like, something's turned there. It's not very good. It's going to take a lot for him to turn the crowd around. And he needs a few good performances and needs a setup that's going to get the best out of him.
Right, with that, so to me, like that's the key point, but it's only half the point, I think, because the other half of that point is that he just, let's say you're asking him to be a creative wide forward. Let's just say for argument, that's not his best thing. He can pass the ball. People think that people say that Rashford doesn't have a football brain. It's not true.
No.
So what I think with Rashford is he doesn't always have a plan when he gets in possession, but we've seen Rashford do some ridiculous things on a football pitch, passing, things that he sees that other people don't see that we haven't seen as fast. If you want him to be that, then play him there. You can't change it every week. And this is one of my main problems with Ten Hag. And I think in the end, there's going to be one of the board's problems with him is that they told him what he has to do, but you can't change it just because you play a team with a high line. Because that's not the idea. The idea is to have a repeatable style that you tweak here and there to target particular weaknesses the opposition has or to deal with particular strengths that they have. And you tweak it a little bit game to game, but the games should look very similar every game. And this game, I mean, it looks similar to a lot of what we've seen, and the common denominator, was shit. But it didn't look similar to how we played against Palace.
No, not at all.
We tried to play against Fulham either. And you have to just, we had players to engage Tottenham in a football match, not in a match of you attack, then we'll try and attack every so often.
So it is very clear. United tried to retain more possession and have more possession in high areas in games against teams that are supposedly weaker and in games against teams that are stronger. So Liverpool, Spurs, Brighton, we drop back into mid-block and launch it, basically. And it's so basic. Would 6 wins in the last 20, right, for United. If you just said, lads, get out there, here's your 11, off you go, I don't think this group of players would get a worse record than that. I mean, it's hard to get a worse record than that as a Manchester United team, but it's almost as if Erik is actively working against the team at this point.
And he's making good players look shit as well.
It's a graveyard for good players. I mean, United has been for a decade, but particularly right now.
Yeah, and it's just like Xerxes, for example. Like I said on Twitter during the Twente game, he was saying United is a beautiful footballer. And I'm getting abuse for it. It's not even I'm saying he's good enough to play for United. I'm just talking about I enjoy the way he takes the ball. I enjoy the way that he passes the ball. I don't know if he's... Because I even said that he's going to need numbers. Because obviously a striker doesn't score or assist. It's Kevin Davis. And that's not a striker. That's a fat bastard. Oh, so I'm not allowed to say that anymore, am I? That is a dickhead. You take that out. But that is a dickhead who was so shit at football that when he signed for Southampton from Colchester, what's it? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Or Chesterfield? Yeah. His kid brothers get bullied in school because he's so useless.
Deary me.
But I mean, he's not Kevin Davis. And it's just you have to play to the strengths of the players that you have. While we're dissing them all, by the way, what I would say is there was one player who kept at it and who I can say, I felt like the way that he played that game made me feel like you have the mentality for this, and that's Garnacho. Like, even the end of the second half, the game's over, it's 3-0. He's still competing with intensity. And I don't know what he's told about covering back or all the rest of it, but he's still putting everything in. He's still playing like there's a game going on. There's a game there till you won. But it felt like just it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of individual performances, there are very few stood out at all. I mean, I know it's the system, but Manuel Ugarte, or Uarte, as he says it, United put out a thing with him saying his own name, Uarte. He looked like a total basket case. I'm sure that's system and pressure being put on him and all of that. And it doesn't help that United were down 10 men for half of the game, of course. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of Garnacho's intensity and running, and he's never going to be someone who does loads and loads of defending. He's really reasonable. I mean, well, I don't know. I
don't agree with that. Like, if the manager tells you to, or we don't know what the manager's being told, but if the manager tells you to, you do it. I mean,
sure.
Other good teams, their players do it. Their players do it. They don't tend to cheat that often, and if they do, it will be as part of the system where it won't be that. We might just be them, not the corner of it.
Yeah, I think he would if he was asked to play in a team that had a consistent high and structured press, and particularly whatever the trigger is, whether it's passing it to the player who's the weakest at passing it in the opposition back four, or whatever the usual trigger is for them, I'm sure he would do it. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's just completely inconsistent at United. It changes from week to week. We are literally the only team in the top half of the table that does that. And we're not even in the top half of the table at the moment.
And I don't know about that. Yeah, like Gary Neville was actually saying that can't detect what the pressing trigger is. There's no trigger. Can't see it. And yeah, that is, I guess, it, isn't it? It's us who are triggered, not them.
Very, very much very triggered at the moment. All right, so we talked about the first goal. Second goal comes after half time. I guess before that we had the Bruno red card. I mean, what do we think about that? I mean, I saw it every time I've seen it back. I'm like, fuck me, that's a really harsh red card. It's hard to give a red card for that one. But do you think it's related to the fuss made about the Lisandro Martinez tackle from last week? I mean, do you think the referee's like looking for something there?
I don't think the referee's looking for it, but the referee wouldn't be human if they weren't thinking, how can I minimize aggravation at work?
Yeah, sure.
Like every cunt thinks about that. How can I minimize aggravation at work? So yeah, I don't know. I think more that from the angle the ref sees it, it looks like a red card, probably. If you see it from the best angle to see it from, it wouldn't have been a red card.
No.
It felt to me like, I guess, if you're looking at video footage, that's on the cusp of one I would want to be overturned.
Yeah, there's just very high bar. And I don't think if it's the other way around, the referee had not given. I mean, obviously, VAR doesn't review yellow cards, but just imagine they could.
Or they don't book him. Or they just don't book him. If you've seen it from the correct angle.
Right.
There's not a chance they're giving him a red for that.
No. I mean, he's slipped. It's the top of his foot that seems to catch the mid part of the shin. I mean, it's not even that high. And the word high does not appear in the guidance anyway, right? It's reckless and dangerous, and the referee must have seen that as dangerous, and he's just seen it wrong.
But I get why the ref saw it like that. It's why it was then seen like that subsequently, I guess. But if they're trying not to overturn on pitch stuff, then I'm in favour of that. So I'm not going to bitch about it. It certainly didn't change the score of this match. But it does mean we don't have our best player and captain, even though he's playing at his arse for 3 games.
Well, I guess he gets a rest. The other thing that happened around about that time, almost exactly afterwards, as Kobe Mainoo came off injured, I thought it was a tactical change.
Yeah,
that he's swapped out Mainoo for Matt, and I'm like, I don't make it.
You assume he's going to take off a winger, right? Well, they've got Ancho or Rashford who's getting taken off because Xerxes can hold the ball, eating out on somebody can run and somebody can control this. Yeah, and you're getting stomped in midfield. So yeah, I thought that too, but hamstring it seems.
So yeah, I mean that could be a few weeks, and Bruno's out for a few games. Great, we're gonna be without two of our apparently first choice midfield. So
Mason Mount's good. He let us all know, he's smiling away,
getting some stitches. Yeah, that really triggered people. That post. So
I found that quite. Yeah, I did not find that triggering.
No, I couldn't care less, but it really does. Yeah, the amount of people calling him a cunt on Twitter or Instagram Yeah, I mean, players should, I guess, just not post after a game. I mean, like, nothing they can say after a big loss like that. There's nothing they can say that makes things better.
It's just,
right?
you see losses, and so the Van Gaal one, like Moyes is hard for me to say because I never believed in him, but I knew I was at Everton. I knew I was quite happy at Everton because I knew that had to be it. It was just too disgraceful, had to be it. Whereas Van Gaal, like the game where I say where you knew, as in where one knew, because I think with Van Gaal it was for everyone. It was that Stoke game over Christmas where it was just so disgraceful, so fucking dreadful. You're like, okay, this isn't getting better now, but he stays for quite a lot. He stays till the cup final.
Yeah.
Where then Ole for me, and I know people went much sooner than I did on Ole, where I felt like I know for sure it's not getting better, was Leicester, and he survives a few more weeks after that, and then he goes. This one, it's just, it can't look like this after 2 years, because the fact that it looks like this, its evidence is two things. One is the lack of organisation and communication, but also you're not doing what you've been told to do. Is that you're playing differently in every game, and it's working badly in most of them. And Jamie Redknapp, of all the things, Jamie Redknapp said he's out of his depth. Goodness me, you really don't have any self-knowledge, do you, James?
I mean, I would not hold Jamie Redknapp up for anything other than, like, I don't know, one of the worst pundits there's ever been. He's managed to make a 25-year career out of punditry.
Yeah, exactly. At least Ten Hag's going to get fired in the next month or so. You're still there.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's out of depth. It's just, I'm sure he cannot be a bad coach that doesn't know what to do here, but he's clearly very solidly in the belief that United should change their tactical setup from game to game. It wouldn't happen if he didn't believe it. He believes this is the best way for United to win games, and it's consistently not.
Okay. So, does he believe it because he doesn't think he's got the players to do anything differently? And then, if that's so, how can
he's bought 21 players? I mean, obviously, some of those were on loan and some have left, but like, this is his squad, not just his team.
That was the first team yesterday, apart from maybe Hoyt
and Shaw,
So, and Shaw, that is the first 11, and he could have bought a left back, but he decided that he was happy to go with what he had. So Valor is also on him to some extent, because he could have done something different.
It wasn't his fault last year where the club decided, maybe he was involved, not to get Cucurella from Chelsea, who had one of his best ever seasons after that. But
I mean, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a strategic mistake. They obviously felt that Shaw was close. He's obviously not. He's now not going to be back until after this international break. Erik Ten Hag may well be gone then, because United have Porto next in the Dragao and then away at Aston Villa. All right, two really difficult games that look like they well could be defeats for United. I mean, like the Villa contrast is an incredible one, because look at where Villa were when Emery took over, and they'll be playing Bayern Munich this week in the Champions League or whatever they're doing, and we're down in Europa at 12th in the league.
What I would say about Villa is he inherited a good squad at Villa and had a shitload of money spent on it, and he's obviously done well with it subsequently. He got some good young players coming through as well, it's actually a really good comparator, because the difference between United and Villa, United have good players as well. A squad that's had a lot of money spent on it, is a manager whose vision works, who knows how to execute what his vision is, and that is the difference. Because that Villa squad that got Gerrard sacked, that was a good squad. It was a good squad even when Dean Smith was the manager. And what Gerrard was doing was he was constantly searching for the right formation, changing players, because he had a lot of good ones. He had more than 11 good ones, particularly in midfield and attack. So he's constantly changing, and Emery came in and said no. Like, he picked his 11, so Moussa Diaby's gone, because he's got his first 11 more or less. Like, might change it for here and then, but they play more or less the same way in all the games, and everyone knows what they're doing. And that is the difference. That a talented squad that is a mess, manager able to with a vision that he can execute, and manager who doesn't appear to have much of a vision and definitely isn't able to execute. And that is a big difference between United and Villa, probably the main difference, because it actually feels in a way that's quite similar, just lavishly assembled squads that people haven't known how to manage.
Exactly. Emery, who I guess failed at PSG and wasn't able to take Arsenal forward, but it's just very, very clear about what he wants at Villa, and he's moving them forward as a result. And I'm
not saying he's right for us either. I'm saying that Emery, we can't judge him by Arsenal or PSG necessarily, because Paris is a mess. When he took over Arsenal post-game, a total mess. But we know that he's got a genius for sort of your upper mid-ranking clubs, your Villas, your Sevillas, your Villarreals of this world. That we know for sure that Emery knows how to do that. We don't know whether he'd be a good manager of United. That's bit. So it's not about we should have got Unai Emery. Maybe we should have done. I don't know. It's that the difference. What he has is, it's that his vision and plan are the things that are most obviously lacking in the squad.
Yeah,
much more
sure.
so than
And he's not a great sort of personality, and for that reason and others, he wouldn't be a good fit at United. But that's true of Ten Hag, right? And I think the fact that he has no personality, he's a technocrat, makes things worse. And he came out for the post-match interview, and I knew what he was going to say, because that's what he does every single time. And he was kind of lightweight with throwing the players under the bus, because he did actually say, I went into the dressing room and I said, okay, we move on now. Tomorrow's another day, sort of thing. And
No, it isn't. How dare you do that?
Yeah.
What? Imagine Fergie doing that.
Fergie would have broken many teacups and probably some players' faces as well. But he's just not very self-reflective, Ten Hag. So
100%. I was about to say, when you say he didn't throw his players under the bus, what I was thinking was, nor did he walk out into the traffic
and
himself.
I'd like to hear it once. I mean, would it be fuel? Sure, but there's plenty of fuel out there for the fans anyway. So if he just said, hey, we got it a bit wrong today, we move on and learn from this, fine. Like, it's hard to say anything that's going to fly after you've lost 3-0 at home for successive games. No one's going to accept that, but he has never, ever, not once, ever taken responsibility for what has happened at United. It's always someone else's problem, not the right players, not enough players, too many injured players. I know a lot of that's down to him. Kobbie Mainoo has played every bloody game this season while he missed Barnsley. But he played in the Euro final on the 14th of July, and then he played in the Community Shield as his first pre-season game on the 10th of August. So it's about 3 weeks off. He came straight back in, training for a few days, back into the side, has played every game and had an England game in between as well. And you're just like, at some point he's going to burn out or get injured. And hamstring twang happened, and it's entirely predictable. And I guess it's because, one, Kobbie is good, two, he doesn't trust his other players. Sure, okay, fine. But that's part of the responsibility of being a manager as well, isn't it?
But I guess which games are we leaving? Because they left him out against Twente as well. I mean, it's a tricky one, this, because you do need some momentum at the beginning of the season, and they obviously are conscious of managing his game time, because he's not played in the cups, but he has. I mean, I think it's kind of reasonable that they played him in the league. And who have we played? Take Liverpool, play Tottenham. You do need him for those games. And I mean, who knows what's wrong with him? But it's an overuse of Mania is probably, I guess, not high on my list of grudges.
I mean, it's one of many.
Losing like that to Tottenham. Losing like that to Tottenham. I mean, I was on the radio on Thursday, and I guess they'd been talking about Twente, and I was saying Tottenham aren't a good team. So I'm not concerned about playing Tottenham. And someone's messaging me on the internet with a screen recording of it this morning, twice now. Same guy, twice! Saying, have you got an apology? And I mean, I haven't replied. It's just if you're not going to be better. It was quite weird, yeah. Asked me to apologise to Tottenham. And it's just, they're still thinking their shit, mate. I don't know what you want me to say. They've got some all right players, but they're still not going to win any trophies, and they're still not going to finish in the top four. What is this? And that's the thing. They lost like that to Tottenham, and I think Tottenham did play well. And one of my mates messaged me saying, I think, so when he saw the team, saying, I think we should kill them in midfield. And I said, I think that's quite a good midfield they've got. Like Kulusevski is a brute, physically a brute. Bentancur is also physical and technical. And Maddison is someone who I don't think there's any footballer with a bigger gap between how good they are and how good they think they are than James Maddison. But the space you get against United's midfield, I think he is a player that I thought might enjoy that. And I guess that sort of brings me back to, can you play Bruno and Mania in the same midfield?
Well, you can, because you play him as a 10. Like, look at what has happened at Chelsea. Maresca has come in with no track record in football at all, other than getting Leicester promoted, and said, we're going to play this way. He's moved Cole Palmer to number 10. He's very, very clearly a number 10, playing behind very, very clearly a striker, right? And he's settled on a formation. He's getting results. And so, you can. Bruno can go back to number 10 rather than being this double 8. You can't play Xerxes in the same team then, I don't think, and not in the same fashion. But you can be very, very clear about the roles that players have and the tactics and the formation and the style of play that you use. That bit is the easiest bit to set up, right? It's the repeatable patterns and the automatisms that come after hundreds and hundreds of training sessions. It's the difficult bit. And Ten Hag hasn't done the basics, right? And it's so brutally obvious to even, dumbasses like me who don't really know what they're doing and just like talking about and just like yap on the internet for the last 2 decades. So and so,
oh my gosh. Is that how much time we wasted?
Pretty much wasted the last 20 years of my life doing this. But I can see it's obvious. But sure as shit, Jason Wilcox and the team around him can see it, right? So they do.
If I can see it, Jason Wilcox can see it. What a sentiment that is. But I agree with you that we're not football experts, and I constantly feel like a bit of a dunce criticizing someone that obviously knows so much more about this than me, and yet it's so peculiar when you watch that kind of performance and think, did an infant come up with this?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah. You get more subtlety if you're playing Football Manager or something. Another thing, I haven't played for 20 years, but
and that's and that's when I get to this point with all the managers where it's a point where I just totally lose hope. And I think, number one, I now don't have any hope whatsoever that you can make this as good as it's going to need to be. And I mean, I was very close to their return half before, but previously, I guess it was the strong suspicion. So you're still like, you never know. Let's just get all the players in the team, and then we'll see. But after yesterday, it's just for this to still be happening after 2 years. And as you mentioned, Maresca, but it isn't just Maresca. You see all these managers come in, even Postecoglou, Iraola, and very quickly, you know what it is they're trying to do. And they do it. And the good ones, it works to some extent. And the teams improve. And I guess for Ten Hag, for me, that was yesterday, where the hope's gone and where I'm actually watching it. And it's the other arm of it is it possible for this team to play worse? And it's also a no. They can play as badly, repeatedly for sure. So circumstances can get worse, but the level of performance as individuals and as a collective, just in every aspect of what it takes to be a football team. So organisation, effort, plan, strategy, improvise, all of this stuff. It cannot really be worse than it was. Well, the only
thing that could have been worse is the end result, right? So Spurs had 24 shots and 5 XG. This could have been 5, 6, or 7, right? So
okay. So if it is, let's say it is 5 or 6, does he get fines today if it's 6-0?
I mean, he's had that before, of course. 7? He's had 5s and 7 before, and however many plus 3s, 25 of them. So maybe. I mean, it may have made it impossible because they can almost hide behind a 3-0 and go, okay, freak result, we got a red card. It was 1-0 when the red card happened. The red card's unlucky, and maybe United would have made a comeback if they hadn't had that red card, right? So you can sort of hide behind that. A 7-0, you could not have done.
That's possible, and that is possible, because if we'd have scored, if Garnacho's shot goes in rather than hitting the post, you don't know. But it's not the point. The point isn't about your ability to come back in games once you've disgraced yourself in the first 45 minutes of them. It's if your team turns up to a game, and especially after one of your senior players has stood there in front of the press
on television and said they
Ericsson,
wanted it more than us. We've been talking in the dressing room, and we've all decided they want it more than us. To then drop a first 30 like that afterwards in a big game where you really need a result and a performance, not just a result, a performance. That is, I mean, it's damning for the players, but it's also really damning for the manager. And it's just, for me, I have no hope now that he is going to make this good enough. And so it's just a matter of waiting for him to get fired.
I mean, international breaks are a good traditional time to fire a manager. There's this one and then the one in the end of November, isn't there? And maybe mixing the second one up. So couple of defeats coming up. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, where's the turnaround coming from? Don't see it. We're going to play. I mean, Porto they lost to Sporting, but they've won every other. And Bodo Glimt. So they lost to Bodo Glimt and they lost to Sporting. Apart from that, they've won all their games this season. So they're not a bad side at all. And just certainly not one of those ones that you'd expect a steamroller, and certainly not in the dugout. Right. So
no, it's a hard game, and you're also like, there's just this steam nagging in the back of my mind. I'm not a conspiracist at all. But I'm thinking, what if they sort of kept Ten Hag on, thinking, well, if it's good, we'll keep him. And if it's bad, then we get Southgate in as a figurehead and Ruud does the coaching, and basically it's quite seamless. And obviously, I'm also thinking, as I keep saying, the guy that works for City, who's responsible for all this, his work with Guardiola, surely isn't going what I need to catch him as Southgate. But there aren't that many. I mean, the Stuttgart manager's good. Meant to be good, doing a great job for sure. And then after that, it feels like Thomas Frank or...
Yeah, I mean, but they had a look at all these people in the summer and they decided not, right? Apart from Southgate. Yeah. Southgate's the new variable here. And but apart from that, they've had a look at all of them and decided no. I don't know whether they actually spoke to Frank, but they obviously spoke to Tuchel. Yeah, I mean, Tuchel, I think the problem there is that, of course, he won't work in the setup United have created. Ruud would, if he was, going to do it as an interim role. Southgate, I mean, God, I mean, I'd rather set my pubes on fire than have him as manager. I will do it live. No,
and me too. And I'm shaved.
God, please.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
Daniel, clearly, you should laser it off. No. Oh dear me. I mean, they should be going. Dear Xabi Alonso, I know you played for Liverpool. I know you committed to Frankfurt for another year, but here is 10 million quid a season. Will you do it or whatever? Right? And that would make sense because everyone else they said no.
Not
to,
even. Not. And it's not even like, let's say it is him. Like, come in like, you would allow, if it's someone you're sure is right, it's better that you come in the summer and Ruud does it.
Get the agreement and then leave it to Ruud. Yeah. So,
and then deal with the rest of the season. But we can see where this is going, and it's not going anywhere good. And feel like we're quite experienced in this now, in like knowing when it's done.
Like, I mean. The two other problems they've got, of course, and they have to make a decision over is like one, the finances. The finances not being in the Champions League are getting bigger, right? So it's not enough to say, well, they get a 25% discount on their wages in the new format where there's 25% more money, 27% more money. So the gap between being in the Champions League and not being in the Champions League is really significant now. And so the gap between United and the rivals financially, and we never had to think about this before because United have always been the big dog, but now we're not after 20 years of decay. And so that's one. And two, we've like Hollandified the entire fucking squad and coaching staff. Yeah, they are all Ten Hag's players, and instead of firing Ten Hag, we put a bunch of coaches around him to help him make it better, which he clearly isn't listening to or taking advice from, right? Because nothing has changed, right? So that is brilliant.
Which is an interesting, actually, that you say that, because it's sort of, and I don't know if it reminds me of Ole, but I was talking about Ole to an Ipswich fan yesterday. And I was saying it's weird because under Ole, United were obviously criticised for poor tactics, and yet they had McKenna there, who's obviously really good at this. So was it a case of Ole just wasn't listening?
and he had his own ideas. And is that really what's going on here? You employ coaches, but ultimately, what the manager's really thinking. With some reason, it's like, if I'm going to get fired, it's going to be based on the decisions that I make. And you can understand why that might be, but then it obviously just undermines the model.
Yeah, I mean, look, every CEO I've ever worked with, one of the things that they do is make decisions. That's the whole point, right? You take advice from your team and you go, okay, this way, right? And there may be competing voices as well, where people have different ideas in that coaching team. But so one way of looking at it is that you fire Ten Hag, you install Ruud as interim head coach, and the coaching structure is all there anyway, and the players just have a new voice to listen to. That's one way of thinking about it. The other way of thinking about it is the squad and the coaching stuff have been built for Ten Hag, and now it doesn't work because you're firing him. So it could end up being fire everyone. It could end up being a real mess, but it can't be worse. Can't be worse than what's happening now, which is we are going absolutely nowhere. And you look at it, and you can't what do we have to hold on to that says, hey, we're going to turn this around?
Nothing now. We've done base treatment.
Yeah, irreversible, right? There's no signs. 45 minutes against Palace. Is that it? Is that what we're clinging to?
In which we didn't score a goal. And then as soon as they realise what we're doing, an adjustment comes. And then after half an hour or so, an adjustment comes and it's harder. And we never saw that yesterday. We just basically saw the same bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose they played better in the second half, but what can you do when the backs are against the wall, you know? And I mean, they did concede twice in that second half, but it's...
And right at the beginning of it as well, that's another thing, that's just, okay, this was dog shit, so you've got 15 minutes to give them what for and to reorganise. 47 minutes.
Unbelievable. United fans, I mean, it's pretty embarrassing. United fans were leaving in droves on 75 minutes and just streaming out. And it is quite hard to get out of Old Trafford in the car, or if you're getting on the tram, you're going to have a long wait. So there's a temptation to do that. But it was just, by the end, it was empty. I
mean, something that I noticed, when Roy Hodgson was manager of Liverpool versus when we had Moyes, those things were still quite proximate in time. Whereas they had a manager that they hated. I mean, Anfield basically fired him within a couple of months. Whereas we didn't do that. It didn't get toxic enough under Moyes, so that Moyes staggers through to April, whatever it was. And we're not good at getting rid of managers when they need to go, because we will support the team and support the players and whatever. So, but it won't. You can't survive too many more results like that.
Well, no, it can't.
Okay. Next two games are away, I guess.
Yes, true. We don't have another home game until after the international break. So, yeah, awesome. Okay,
so that could be his last appearance at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
If we lose the next two.
There wasn't any kind of wave goodbye or anything like that from Ten Hag.
No, he was quite bullish.
All right, shall we talk about Porto on Thursday night? So,
yeah. Well, I guess what we have now is Bruno.
He'll play in that game because he's going to miss the next. I mean, I guess in theory they could appeal, but they're not going to be successful with that. There's no way that's going to get overturned.
Yeah, you can't appeal that.
Porto, whose president is Andres Villas-Boas. Perhaps we get him in as manager. It's a strange turn of a career, that one, isn't it?
Well, he's sort of the opposite. Well, the opposite, because we're a low line these days, no pressure on the ball, and he was high line, no pressure on the ball.
They were third in the Portuguese league last season, so underperformance for them.
Third in the three-horse race.
Benfica, Sporting, and Porto.
Although, apparently Alvaro Fernandez is doing really well versus by the way.
Could do a left back, couldn't we?
So,
maybe we can buy him back. Is there a buyback clause in that one? There probably is, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
Yeah, well, good for him. Good for him. Mason Greenwood keeps banging in goals for Marseille as well. Not that we'd want him back.
Yeah.
So, any favourite memories from United's many games at the Dragao or the old stadium before that?
I mean, the Ronaldo goal is still just absolutely absurd. That goal, how good that was. The other one was 0-0. After we're beating 4-0 at Old Trafford.
2004, the drag-out hasn't...
I forgot about that one.
It's 1-1.
That was a lucky...
2-1.
No, we lose 2-1, but lucky to get away with... Like, we score, lucky to get away with... Keane gets sent off. We were lucky to get away with 2-1. And Benny McCarthy scores an unbelievable header in that game. But, we might turn up and play a bit better. But if we're taking Bruno and Mania out of that team, and I don't know, we're putting Bruno into it, aren't we? So Ugarte, Bruno, and
Casemiro, I guess. Maybe Casemiro plays as the link. Oh, what sort of style of play? I mean, like, clearly he's going to be worried about this one. I don't expect United to be dominant on the ball. So what, we're going to sit back and bang it long again? Is that going to be the methodology? Does Højlund play in this one? Play for space?
Spaces, maybe.
Does Eriksen play as the link? So
Bruno, Eriksen, Ugarte. I don't see that you could do that with this team away from home. The defence has just conceded 3 times. Because also, one of the things that was bothering me watching this game, and we said it at the time, was like, got 2 centre backs, and neither of them have got recovery pace. And how can that be?
Yeah.
And I mean, Martinez had a lousy start to the season. Let's be honest. Like, he's a fan favourite with good reason, but he's been shit so far this season. But you can't. Yeah, I mean, this was poor yesterday, but I'm not going to judge it. Let's see. But the reasons why he wasn't my preferred signing are things that were
sure. I think that's like the weaknesses were fairly obvious. Like,
and any factor in Mazraoui also not particularly fast. Then you've got 3 out of 4. You're back 4, and it's just that's not really how football teams work.
It would have if Lenioro had not been injured. How many games would he have got? Would Ten Hag have thrown him in straight away, or would they be working up to playing him in the in the second half of the season? That it might not be Ten Hag's problem, but he has got recovery pace, and so like if he's in the side, it looks like a better balance, doesn't it? So
because you can then play a high line because you've got someone that can administer it. But it seemed like a strange buy to me in time, and it seems like quite a strange.
I mean, I guess the question is, maybe the challenge is that he's another body in there, and he's better than Victor Lindelof and marginally better than Harry, I guess. So
no, much better than that. He'd be a lot better than that, but it's just it depends. Yeah, you're trying to integrate this young player you think is going to be the best around. And then you brought him to go in front of him, someone who's at an age where they need to play all the time, who's left where they were because they weren't playing. And I mean, I know he's better than we saw yesterday, and I'm sure he'll have some good games for us. It's just the blend didn't seem to work. If Martinez was lightning, and then we signed to lift someone who's a box defender, leadership with that, good in the opposition box with headers, then you say okay. But I don't want to play him with Martinez.
Problem for another day, I guess. But it's the balance is not quite right. I guess those who play again, maybe Maguire comes back into the team and they give De Ligt a rest. I mean,
oh my gosh, I didn't do the midweek show, but the goal that Twente's goal was just like classic
really
Harris, wasn't it? Charging out to be like Mr. Leader. And not only falling on his arse, but getting megged in the process, and they score. It was just, hashtag classic Aaron's.
So what do we? I mean, I have not seen Porto.
So in this game, I'm not playing Harris Maguire. I'm playing the defenders that I want to play in all the games to build a relationship because we can't see it can be like this. And putting Harris in to give someone a rest or so that he doesn't get fat. Well, he wasn't on the bench yesterday.
But Victor Lindelof was about to come on yesterday and then didn't.
That'll sort it.
Porto managed by Vitor Bruno, very young manager, who basically managed a bunch of sort of lower grade sides before this, and then he was assistant at Porto and then became manager. I don't know much about him, to be honest. Or really Porto. I saw the highlights of Bodo Glimt, who people do rate as a decent side. So better than you'd expect coming out of Norway.
No, Bodo Glimt are good. They've been good for a couple of years now.
So, I mean, Porto need a win. I was going to say, bigger picture for the Europa League. I think it's hard to say. Like, if United lose this one, and the next one's away at Fenerbahce, which they could well lose as well, they won't actually be in a very good position in the league. It's almost impossible to not qualify from.
Maybe that's why you say, I won 2 cups and I managed to avoid getting out of the Europa League group.
Wow. He didn't even pull out his I've won 2 cups yesterday. Yeah.
Cock.
Well, that would be something. We'd be talking about that, right? So it's like, I don't know how much you're watching the US elections. It's highly entertaining.
My
well, I mean, I can't vote here. I'm not a citizen, so I was going to say I don't have a dog in this fight, but that's the wrong term, isn't it? But every time something like there's some kind of policy discussion, he'll say something absolutely outrageous, and it deflects all the whole conversation, right? So,
I mean, the whole thing is amazing,
yesterday,
how they've managed to turn it into like a 9-month-long.
It is,
series.
and yesterday he said. By the way, every time we talk about politics, I can guarantee there'll be tweets and messages on our YouTube channel going, "Oh God, guys, just stick to football." Anyway, I was just saying this because he.
Come on, if you're watching this and you're a United fan, we're talking about anything other than football. You should be saying, "Well done, lads."
So yesterday, he basically said there should be a purge. He said there should be one day a year where the police are allowed to do whatever they want. It should be really, really nasty, and that would stop all crime. Anyway, that was his big thing yesterday. And of course, that's all the headlines. If Ten Hag pulled out his cock, we would not be talking about United 0, Spurs 3. We'd be talking about like 8 inches of Ten Hag's log. Yeah.
Albania was.
Or whatever. No. I can't imagine. He doesn't demonstrate a lot of BDE, does he? So I can't imagine it's a big one. Rude on the other hand.
I mean,
he's got a trouser snake, guaranteed. So.
Such a funny story, but sort of about United and Cox. I knew someone who's his wife knew O'Shea's girlfriend or wife, or whatever it was. I don't know if it's. I don't know who it was. So I don't know if it's. I don't know if it's the now Mrs. O'Shea. But turned out O'Shea had a big cock, and he later encountered Ryan Giggs, and he said to Ryan Giggs, he was chatting to Ryan Giggs, and he said, "Something O'Shea, I heard O'Shea's got a massive cock." And Ryan Giggs goes, and the most funny about it was it's just so Ryan Giggs like inability to like give charity to and like just that real like someone just offered you up saying, "Oh, you got stolen," but you couldn't allow someone to leave thinking Roche has about a big cock.
Does Ten Hag get fired after we lose to Porto 3-0, or do they wait to the weekend and the international break?
I think I'm basically making him slap it on the desk for me, and that's how I'm going to decide. I think if he was going for this, he'd be gone. Because they've got Rude, so it's not a difficult thing to say we fired him, Rude's taking over till further notice. Yeah, if he was going for this, he'd be gone. Moyes was gone by this stage with way less proactive owners. Van Gaal was gone before they'd even lifted the cup almost. Mourinho's gone in the morning after they lose at Anfield. And Ole's gone probably even Saturday
after Watford,
night, yeah. So if he was going for this, he's gone. Do I think he'll still be manager at the end of the next international break? I think it's going to depend on when they want to fire him. I don't think he's going to get good enough results to get to their execution.
He signed it. Well, he didn't sign a new contract. They executed on the extra year in his contract. And I wasn't really surprised about that because they couldn't just have him as a lame duck for a year, right? They had to go, hey, we've got total faith in this manager. And I think I said on the last pod, they will keep saying we've got total faith in this manager until they fire him. You just kind of have to, don't you? Otherwise, you completely undermine the guy. But I guess the thing is, the Ineos team have been so proactive about everything, like really aggressively recruiting, analytical staff, technical staff, coaches, a new CEO, a new technical director, like so much change. And they're getting cold feet over the key position, the manager, and don't seem to be very decisive about it, right? They had every reason to fire him at the end of last season, could have done, decided not to. And so it just feels a little bit like it feels not within the sort of spirit of how they seem to be acting. But I guess they're just waiting until they haven't got any other choice. But they could, if they wait beyond this international break, like they're waiting to hope is going to turn around. I think we got 100 games worth of evidence now that it almost certainly won't. So,
and also they're running out of scope.
Well, exactly.
Which in turn affects what you can do next season in terms
the
of
opportunity cost of not firing him could be a place in the Champions League next season, right? And that's 60, 70 million pounds. So if they're worrying about 10 million to fire him, I presumably keep the coaching staff, but to pay out his contract, if they're worried about that, the opportunity cost could be much, much higher.
But it's also then if you fire him, if you wait till the end of the season, who's the new manager going to be, and you can't plan in the same way. It needs doing, I'm afraid.
All righty, I guess that is it for this week. What a shambles. We've had quite a few of these, Dan, over the last couple of years. So
yeah. I feel like we've got many more yet to come.
The joy of being a United fan, yeah.
I look forward to that.
They say that it's the hope that kills you, and we haven't got much of that, so that's all right.
So we're all good. Let me ask you, if, like you always say about Fergie and the Dorian Gray deal, would you have accepted that United, if United a ship for the rest of your life because of how good they were from 1990
versus
to
what, winning a title every 4 or 5 years?
Versus like we might get good again.
But yeah, would you take that deal? Yeah, I guess you would, right? So
I can't remember if I've said this before, but I was at a bat mitzvah in the summer, and the dad of the bat mitzvah girls, or he was in French schools, and he's got a son who's now 17, and dad's a Liverpool fan, so his son's a Liverpool fan, and he's properly going in my face. He's had a few drinks, and it's a teenager, so he's going, I fucking hate Man United. Shit. I'm like, we are shit, but my cup is full. And obviously, like, I'm saying this for his benefit, because I'm not getting rinsed by a 17-year-old, a piss 17-year-old. So I'm saying my cup is full, and I want United to win more stuff. If they don't, I'm very lucky to have seen what I've seen. And I was, but I'm thinking...
The thing is, you can't even roast a 17-year-old because it's been so long since we were good, he won't remember when United were good.
Tabloids.
So, he was 4 the last time United won a league title. Kobe Manu was 5. So it's, desperate times. Yes, I'd probably take that deal, Daniel, but I would still like United to be good now. Thank you very much, please.
I definitely on balance prefer.
Here's another question, right? So Ten Hag's got no personality and his tactics are a mess. Would you take Vibes again? I'm not saying return Ollie, because there was that whole fuss in midweek about that, but would you take a Vibes manager? Someone you're like, not sure about the approach here, but he's got a bit of character. Like Thomas Frank, who's played.
But that's who I was thinking too. But Thomas Frank has tactical acumen. Thomas Frank plays 3-5-2 against usually difficult opposition, 4-3-3 in games he thinks they should win, and the players know what to do all the time. I mean, he's actually of the available candidates, I don't know if he's my favourite, but he's close to it. And I say favourite, obviously, advisedly.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. Leave you on that note, thinking about Thomas Frank, better than thinking about Gareth Southgate, fuck's sake. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Check out our YouTube channel, patreon.com/NQAT pod if you want to join our backers club. We do a tactics show and an extra show each week at some point. Very pleased if you can support us there. And if not, and you're just listening, well, thank you very much as well. All right. Bye now.
Peace.